Genetics can be amazing when they work in your favor. They can be absolutely terrible when they don't, but they can also be completely mind-boggling and they can completely disrupt your motivation. Why would you want to work out if genetics are against you? It's like it's not fair if you have to work literally 3 times as hard as someone else, right? It's really not fair. As a matter of fact, when you look at the obesity side of things, there are potentially even gene variances that can make it literally 3 times harder to respond to exercise from a lipolysis, fat burning standpoint. Now, granted, that's a very small amount of people that deal with that, but genetics play a huge role in everything. So I am going to talk about something that sounds cheesy. It's the way that you can beat your genetics. And it's based upon legitimate science. This isn't some weird clicky YouTube thing. Like if you look at the 3 different stages of genetic influence on how we respond to exercise, you'll see what I mean. I put a link down below for Seed's Daily Symbiotic. It is a 25% off discount link. Seed is a probiotic and a prebiotic in one capsule. The reason that I mentioned it with this video is because next to our genetics, our microbiome might be one of the most powerful influences in terms of how we respond to exercise. Like we see in people that are elite athletes, they have a specific type of gut bacteria, a different microbiome than other people. And it can be influenced by our diet, by our way of living, by our exercise, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the best things that you can do is give yourself a diverse microbiome. So I put a link down below for Seed Daily Symbiotic. It has a capsule inside of a capsule, so you're getting like a multi-stage delivery of these prebiotics and probiotics, potentially into the right area of the colon, right? So that link is for 25% off, and it's down below in the top line of the description, right underneath this video. So when we look at the performance side and we look at the results side, we understand that genetics play a role. There's a huge connection between our genes and our strength. There is a strong connection between our genes and our VO2 max, basically how hard we can kind of aerobically and anaerobically push it, like if we're on a treadmill or a bike. And then there's a bit of a genetic influence to our power. Now, from a VO2 max perspective, it seems like it's about a 40 to 50% contribution, meaning our genes play a significant role in how high our VO2 max can get. But I'm talking about fat loss more than anything. And VO2 max, yeah, you could draw a correlative kind of line between VO2 max and fat loss, but what I want to focus on here the most is a study that was published in PLOS1 that looked at desire. Yes, the literal desire to train is genetic. Huge, right? That's insane. Now hear me out on this. They looked at twins across 7 different countries. Okay, so sets of twins that have the same DNA, same genes. And what they found is that the genetics, the shared genes, played the biggest role in the desire or the willingness to exercise. The environment, where they grew up, the circumstances played almost no role. And I know you can find that really hard to swallow. Like, people have rough childhoods. I had an odd, rough childhood, and I actually thought that maybe that's why I found exercise, because I thought that maybe it was my way of sort of dealing with adversity of an interesting childhood, right? Now, I'm sure that plays a role. Absolutely, like overcoming adversity, but also the other way around, right? It can also send people down a destructive path where maybe they don't establish healthy habits. But it's wild because essentially what they found is that the genetic contribution to the pure desire to train is 48 to 71%. When you start looking at the other categories, the performance, but also the results from the exercise, highly variable, and the overall genetic contribution is quite small. Okay, so yes, it's strong when it's strong, meaning when you have elite athletes, sometimes you can see very clear differences, but they are outliers. They're not looking at the big masses of people. The big masses of people, the genetic influence is much more surrounding the desire to train or the desire to exercise. And what we've seen in the study in the Journal of Behavioral Medicine is that those people that enjoy exercise, they have a better mood response to exercise and they have lower perceived effort. Exercise seems less painful and difficult. But why do I say that this is the only way that you can beat your genetics? Because you cannot beat your genetics when it comes down to influencing how your body burns fat. You can shift it a little bit by doing some kind of dietary strategies that shift how your mitochondria functions. Don't get me wrong, you absolutely can. You can train yourself and get better if your performance kind of sucks. You can build more muscle and get more strength. Don't get me wrong, there's physiological and even epigenetic changes that can occur, but you're not going to change your polymorphisms or whatever might be. Now, are you going to be able to change your willingness to train or your willingness to exercise? Yes. You may not change the genetic influence there, but you can change your psychology. And what I mean by that is, don't worry about what the effect of the exercise is. When you learn this part that I'm about to share, it will open your eyes and be a game changer for how you get benefit out of exercise. If you remember that 48 to 71% of the reason you want to exercise or not exercise is genetic, you realize how much of it you can override. The people that don't get good results, maybe they have a difference in how hard they're willing to push, but more importantly, how consistently they're willing to show up. Because I'm not here to tell you that you need to push it harder. I'm telling you that consistency is the key. Consistency is the absolute key when it comes down to overriding your genetics. Because this is one piece you can override with a calendar. It's one piece that you can override with writing down when you're going to go to the gym and sticking to it. You can't override how much percentage of fat you use. You can't override how much contractile strength you have in one particular myofibrillar. That's just too much. But you can control when you show up. And I'm telling you, based on the actual statistical data, that is where the largest genetic variance is between people that want to exercise and people that don't want to exercise. So even though you don't want to exercise, if you start just doing it, you might find that maybe you do have genetic gifts when it comes down to performance, when it comes down to fat loss. You're just not willing to give it the extra little time, right? But what about effort? There was a study that took a look at intrinsic motivation, had subjects go on a treadmill, and it was looking, once again, at their genetics. They found that people that had one particular set of genetics, 55% of them were willing to keep pushing it further and longer and faster on a treadmill. In people that didn't have that set of genetics, only about 30% were willing to push it. So we know that there's even a genetic influence in just how far you're willing to take a workout. And that's basically telling you just where your finish line is. So if you start getting more objective about your diet, you get more objective about your training, you get more objective about how hard you push, meaning you actually have some data to look at, you write, you log your workouts down, that will absolutely override your genetics. It's the one thing that you can neurologically, psychologically override that you cannot necessarily override metabolically. So can you burn more fat by doing this? Yes, because if you show up when you ordinarily genetically wouldn't show up, you're gonna burn more fat. I'll see you tomorrow.